Hello and welcome to our webinar. Today, focusing on the fascinating country that is Oman. My name's Jonny Bealby. I founded Wild Frontiers and I'm delighted to be hosting a talk about a country that has, through what it offers intrepid travellers, remained a cornerstone of the Wild Frontiers offering, and despite recent upheavals in the region, continues to entice and enchant the visitor. And with over 700 registered for tonight's event, it just illustrates how interesting people find this region. And I know we have people from all over the world, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whether you're watching this live or on catch up, you are very welcome and thank you all so much for joining us. So just to explain a little about how the talk's going to go, I am going to give you a very little bit of background about Wild Frontiers, how I set it up 27 years ago, and then I'm delighted to say we're going to be joined by our keynote speaker, Marc Evans. Now, I'll give Marc a bit more of a build-up closer to the time that he's actually going to speak to you, but suffice to say, we are delighted to have Marc talking tonight because, well, with 25 years of experience living in Arabia, I think it's fair to say that what Marc doesn't know about Oman isn't really worth knowing. So there we are. After Marc Evans, we will hand over to Marc Leaderman. Now, many of you that watch our webinars on a regular way, or indeed listen to our podcasts, will know Marc well. He is the Director of Product and Operations here at Wild Frontiers, and he will talk you through the two signature trips that we run to the area. After that, Mike will come on the screen and he will feed us questions for a Q&A. So if you have any questions during the presentation, then do just use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. As usual, we'll be sending out an email tomorrow, which will give you a link to this webinar. So if you have to rush off halfway through, or you simply want to watch it again, or you want to share it with your friends, you will be able to. We will also give you some more information on that email and answer any of the questions that we don't get round to answering today. So without further ado, let me share my screen and we can crack on with the presentation. Right, where are we? Here we go. So yes, as I say, I am Jonny Bealby. I founded the company 27 years ago after having three big adventures during the 90s. I rode a motorbike right the way around Africa. I walked through parts of India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and I rode a horse 3,000 miles along the Silk Road from Kashgar to the Caspian Sea. This gave rise to my three travel books, Running with the Moon about the motorcycle journey, For a Pagan Song about the walk through Afghanistan, and Silk Dreams, Troubled Road about the horse riding journey along the Silk Road through Central Asia. But it also gave rise to Wild Frontiers. It was while I was doing the second book in northern Pakistan, I came across this amazing group of people called the Kalash, a pagan tribe that live in the narrow valleys that buttress up between Pakistan and Afghanistan. I put my bags down there for 3 months and decided that running a travel company might be slightly more lucrative than writing travel books. So I set up Wild Frontiers, and that's how it all started. Very quickly, we started to run group tours and tailor-made holidays, and that is what we do. We now run trips to over 60 destinations worldwide. Premium small group tours with a maximum group size of 12 and tailor-made adventures, as I say, to over 60 destinations along the roads less travelled. And we aim to inspire connections and challenge perceptions. But tonight is all about Oman, a country I've absolutely loved when I've visited. If you like deserts, this is the place to go to. I can promise you that. But of course, there is a lot more to it than just deserts. So without further ado, let me stop rabbiting on and introduce you to Marc. Now, Marc has, let me just stop sharing my screen and we will get Marc to come up very soon. Marc is an explorer, conservationist, and the founder of Outward Bound Oman, the first outward bound school in the Arabic-speaking world, which so far has helped shape the lives of nearly 25,000 young people. In 2005, he was cited by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth as a pioneer for the nation for his work in outdoor education, and in 2012 was awarded the MBE for his work using challenging outdoor journeys for personal development and learning. In 2023, Marc was awarded the Medal of Honor by the Sultan of Oman for his work establishing Outbound in the Sultanate. In 2016, Marc led a team of Omanis to become the first people in... Of course, I shouldn't be showing my screen here. I do apologise. Hang on a minute. I've got to have a picture of Marc, haven't I? Sorry. There we go. Oh, there we go. Apologies for that. I forgot about putting Marc up. Very remiss of me. In 2016, Marc led a team of Omanis, the first Oman people in 85 years to retrace the first crossing of the largest desert on Earth, the Rub al Khali, or better known to you and I as the Empty Quarter, on a 49-day journey on foot and by camel from Salalah to Dhofar. In 2022, he led a 28-day east-west crossing of Saudi Arabia in the 1917 footsteps of explorer Harry St. John Philby. And earlier this year, he completed his latest expedition, which was the Jewel of Arabia, a 30-day journey on foot and by camel along the coastline of Oman. As I said before, Marc has lived in Oman for 25 years, and I'm delighted to welcome Marc to tell us more about his latest adventure, the Jewel of Arabia expedition. So Marc, over to you.
Thanks, Jonny. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you though, Marc. Have you got your camera on?
Probably not, actually. I might have done all of those things that you mentioned, but I'm absolutely hopeless with technology. Can you see the screen now?
We can see the screen, but it's better that we see you than see me.
Oh gosh, if the danger is if I jump out of the screen, I'm going to lose everything. So it might be better that I
Okay, you can remain elusive, and I will cut off my video camera so people can't see me. So over to you.
Okay, look, thanks very much, Jonny. Thanks for the intro, and great to have so many people showing an interest in a country that is just incredible and has been such a big part of my life for a big chunk of time. And without doubt, Oman is the jewel of Arabia. I know there are people listening from many different nations and nationalities. I'm a Brit, obviously, and Oman is a country that is very closely aligned to Britain and has been for many, many years. The respective royal families are very close, and Oman is quite regularly visited by members of the UK royal family. There's a big expatriate community in Oman. Several thousand British people, big British school, tells you a lot about the sort of stability of the country. And for me, civilization is being able to buy chocolate hobnobs and PG tips, and you can buy both of those things in Muscat. So a little bit about the country that I love so much and that Jonny loves so much, this beautiful country called Oman in the southeast corner of Arabia. So in terms of area, it's about the size of Britain, but the huge difference is that Britain's got about 70 million people and Oman has just shy of 5 million people. So huge areas of country that are still remote wilderness, very low population density. If you look at the map on your screen, you can see the mountains to the north, which tectonically are connected to the mountains across the Gulf of Oman in Iran. So one or two minor earthquakes in northern part of Oman, in Masandam, near the Straits of Hormuz, but nothing to worry about. But the mountains there, the Hajar Mountains, go up to 10,000 feet, about 3,000 meters, which means even in the heat of summer, I think the Wild Frontiers journeys sensibly go in the winter when the desert is at its best. But even in the heat of summer, right now, you can drive a vehicle up to about 7,500 feet up into those mountains, 2 hours outside of the capital, Muscat, and you can be in beautiful, cool weather. And then to the south, so Muscat, the capital, you can see about 2 o'clock there. And if you go way to the south of Oman, down towards the border with Yemen, you'll find the second city of Salalah. And if Oman is the jewel of Arabia, then Salalah and Dhofar, the province within which Salalah sits, is definitely the jewel of Oman. It's absolutely beautiful. And that is where you have the 2 or 3 months of the monsoon in the summer, which makes Salalah so incredibly green, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. But a little bit about the history of Oman. Oman has a history going back to the Stone Age, really. It goes back thousands of years. And, one thing that makes Oman so different to the other Middle Eastern states and the Gulf states is this outreach that it's had with people of different cultures all around the world, really due to being a maritime trading nation in the form of trading copper and trading frankincense. If you've been to Mombasa, many of you are great travelers. I know if you're connected to Wild Frontiers, if you've been to Mombasa or Dar es Salaam down the coast, you'll find mosques and Islam and Arabic being spoken, and that's really due to the Omani traders who would sail down the coast with the northeasterly monsoon. They would sail from Salalah and Oman, laden with frankincense and Omani copper. And they'd sail down the east coast of East Africa to Zanzibar, and then they would hang out for a couple of months until the monsoon swung around to the southwest, and then they would sail back up the coast. So this incredible history. Oman really is a seafaring nation, a maritime nation, and that openness to other people's lives and perspectives and thoughts makes part of the reason really why Omani people are so incredibly welcoming and hospitable. You will find Portuguese forts, all the different eras of maritime power struggles going on, and over 5,000 similar structures to this have been preserved in Oman, from small watchtowers to major forts like this. So if you're into your history and archaeology, then Oman is absolutely fantastic. And on some of our expeditions, we've been following in the footsteps of explorers in the 1920s, 1930s. And, a camera then was the size of a tea chest. And this was a photograph taken by a British explorer in 1927. And what you're looking at here is still misunderstood or not understood today. You're looking at triliths. And we found those recently on our own expedition in exactly the same location. And a few theories now evolving as to what they are. They're not burial sites, pre-Islamic. They're very, very old. But if you want to find out, you need to read a bit of work by an incredible archaeologist called Jeff Rose, who was a Nat Geo explorer and a great archaeologist. And southern Oman was seen as one of the migration routes of human beings out of Olduvai Gorge in East Africa. So Arabia and southern Oman in particular has been a real hotspot for human evolution and distribution. But if you really want to understand the history of Oman and the culture of Oman, I would urge you to go onto Spotify or Apple Play and type in Jewel of Arabia Expedition Podcasts, and there you will find a podcast by this lady here where it says Omani food and a fusion of cultures, because Oman is a fusion of cultures. And Dina Maki is the sort of Nigella Lawson of Oman. She's a food expert, from locusts to high-end food. And if you want to understand the cultural influences that have shaped Oman, look at the food and listen to this podcast, because that will give you a great background and a bit of understanding. But if you are a real adventurous explorer, which I know if you're connected to Wild Frontiers you will be, then other than the Royal Geographical Society in London, the society or the club to belong to is the Explorers Club in New York. And back in the 1930s, with the South Pole conquered, North Pole, well, there were disputes over that, whether that had fallen or not. Everest had still not been climbed, but the Explorers Club of New York considered the empty Quarter of Arabia, that huge sand desert in Central Asia, to be the largest expanse of unexplored territory outside of Antarctica. And the race was on to become the first. And if you go into any bookshop anywhere in the world and ask for a book on desert exploration, they'll give you probably the guidance to this book, Arabian Sands by Wilfred Thesiger. And Thesiger was without doubt the guru of desert travel. His black and white photography, his skill with the pen and the written word are legendary. But Thesiger was not the first person to cross the greatest sand desert on earth. I was fortunate to meet him several times before he passed away at the in his early 90s, an extraordinary man. Um, there's an award in London if you are an academic, if you're a scientist, then you can apply for the Thesiger Oman grant, a fellowship, which offers awards of up to £8,000 for geographical research through the Royal Geographical Society in London. But it's the man looking at you here that has been a particular interest of mine for the last 25 years, because he was the first European to cross the largest sand desert on Earth. His name was Bertram Thomas, very much overshadowed by Thesiger. But this is an old map of Oman drawn by the cartographers at the Royal Geographical Society in London many years ago. And you'll see a red line going from south to north, from Salalah to Doha, the capital of Qatar. And that was the route that Thomas took in 1930-31. And in so doing that journey, he became the first person, the first European to cross the largest sand desert on Earth. But if you look along the coastline, you will see dashed red lines. That are other journeys that Thomas did, and it was the one along the southeast coast of Oman that we followed this year. For all of those incredible journeys, Thomas was awarded all of the major geographical and exploration medals that it's possible to have. The Cullum Medal from the American Geographical Society, the Royal Asiatic Society, the Royal Geographical Society, the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, the Sultan of Oman awarded him the Order of Al Said. An extraordinary man who really was at the cutting edge of exploration. He had a camera with him in 1931 here. You know, what you see here is a photograph in southern Oman with the Jibali people. Jebel is mountain. These are the people of the mountains burning frankincense here to get rid of the evil spirits. The word genie has its root in the Arabic word jinn, which means spirits. So Thomas created a record of an Arabia that is in many ways long gone. But if you look at that route that he did from Salalah to Doha, today on this modern map that you're looking at right now, something's appeared that wasn't there when Thomas did his journeys, which are political boundaries between Oman and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. And that explains, Jonny alluded to the fact that when I retraced that journey from Salalah to Doha 10 years ago, we were the first people in 85 years to do it. And it's purely because it was impossible to cross those borders, because there is nothing there. There is no one to check you in or out. There's not a fence, but it is patrolled by border security and getting permission to cross. People have tried, people who wanted to retrace that journey, but they were never able to unlock the door. And to unlock that door, we had to get quite high level permission. So we went to the then Prince Charles, and from Prince Charles, we went to the Sultan of Oman, both of whom gave their blessing to our journey many years ago. And from there to the Emir of Qatar, and then we went to Riyadh to meet King Salman. And one by one, we managed to get all the permissions we needed to retrace that journey. But any journey in Arabia is not what it could be if it doesn't involve camels. And camels are not the working animals they used to be. They are used for racing today. You can buy camel meat in the supermarket. You can buy camel milk. There are camel beauty contests. I'm sure you'll agree this is an absolute beauty you're looking at here. But I think there has been some skullduggery going on in recent years, because I understand that Botox has now been banned in camel beauty competitions. But 49 days we walked across the biggest sand desert on Earth, and really there are few places on the planet left where there is not a single piece of plastic or visible plastic. There are microplastics everywhere now, but no visible bits of plastic, no footprints, no tire tracks, no planes going overhead. It was just a privilege to be able to spend time in this beautiful, beautiful landscape. And your greatest enemy when you're traveling in Oman or anywhere in Arabia is the sun. So being covered up, pacing your day, look at the length of the shadows here. You can see that we're traveling in early morning, which is when the sensible local people, the Bedouin community that live here, up early, do your stuff in the cool of the morning, have a snooze in the middle of the day, find a bit of shade, but then start again as soon as that sun starts to dip and work into the evening. Sensible way to travel and a sensible way to live. But if you're a photographer, Arabia is utterly spectacular. It really is absolutely beautiful. And that mixture of heritage, people, and travel history is extraordinary. I know that from talking to Marc and Jonny that the Wild Frontiers journeys in Oman often tend to visit a particular desert that is to the northeast of the Empty Quarter, which is today called the Sharqiya Sands. And this particular desert is one of the most intensely studied deserts in the world. The Royal Geographical Society in London, this photograph you see here, taken in the mid 1980s, there for 3 years, teams of ecologists, botanists, lepidopterists visited the sands. Then they were called the Wahiba Sands. Today they're called the Sharqiya Sands. They're one of 3 fog deserts in the world, the other 2 being in Chile and Namibia. In other words, deserts right next to the sea, where every morning you wake up to a light fog and a dew that gives you an equivalent of 1 millimeter of rainfall a day. And that makes the desert a living place that is much more alive than you would think. But most of the stuff comes out at night, not in the daytime, because it's sensible. So Oman is an extraordinary country. It was my home for 22 years. I really never locked my door. I never locked my car. The foreign minister of Oman lectured recently at Oxford University, and the title of his lecture was talking to anyone for the good of everyone. And that is Oman's foreign policy. It has a policy of non-interference in the affairs of others. When you see American hikers being released from Iran, or piracy hostages being released from Somalia, it's always Oman that they fly to. It's Oman that in the shadows, in the background, because that's Oman, never on the front of stage, never front of house, that quietly facilitates and brokers peace. So the man you're looking at here on the left, T. Lawrence, on the right, Lowell Thomas. If you're a member of the Explorers Club of New York, every year they have the Lowell Thomas Award. Lowell Thomas was a movie mogul, a filmmaker, a journalist. He was so inspired by the actions of T. Lawrence in Arabia that he went out and did lots of black and white footage. If you want to read a great book other than Arabian Sands, 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence really captures the essence of the desert in a way that no one else ever has. But what you're looking at here is something that Thomas refers to in his book. You're looking here at the oldest university in the world. And I was lecturing in Spain several years ago at the University of Salamanca, claims to be 600 years old. And they were saddened when I said, well, actually, the university in Oman is much older than that. And what you're looking at here, Lawrence referred to as the University of the Desert. And here, illiterate, humble shepherds could hold their place with learned people, and problems of the world could be solved around the fire and a bowl of frothy camel milk. And so, based on that philosophy, for about 10 years, I ran a peace building program in Oman, bringing young leaders together from Iran, from USA, from Yemen, from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, really trying to inspire people who could influence others. And boy, does the world need this more than ever today. But the key point here is that Oman is the perfect place and the perfect platform for this, because it reflects its own policy of peace and intercultural dialogue, and a great place to reflect and plan your steps to make the world a better place. And a great place for inspiration if you're an artist too. It really is such a beautiful, beautiful place. So as Jonny alluded to earlier this year, I did a 30-day journey with my friends Nigel Harling, Anna Maria Pavalache, and others along the coast of Oman, following the 1927 footsteps of that man called Bertram Thomas. And Thomas was an extraordinary man, only in Oman for 4 years, 5 years, but boy, did he make the most of his time there. He didn't take his leave in the hot summer like everybody else did. He worked through the heat of summer and took his leave in the winter so he could explore the deserts far and wide. And hence this map depicts the journeys that he did. So we started our own journey in January this year, in the very same beach where Thomas landed in 1927. Camels and the team, we were followed by Mike Slee and his camera team when they would catch up with us when we were watering the camels at water holes in the desert. We had some of Thomas's original black and white photographs from 1927. If you look at the photograph I'm holding here, this is the very fort where Thomas had to come to in 1927 to get permission from the local wali, the local sheikh of the area, so he could travel under his protection. And you know, some of the most extraordinary biodiversity. You are in a desert, you're on the edge of the biggest desert on the planet, but you've got amazing mangroves, which are home to ospreys, flamingos, thousands of herons and birds of prey. An amazing place. You think you're in the Amazon jungle. And then not far down the coast from here, you've got this beautiful rugged coastline, in a place that is literally 4 hours from the capital city. It's just spectacularly beautiful. And what you notice, there's not one sign of human activity. It's just beautiful place to be, and that ocean is alive with life. To, you know, incredible stories like this. What you're looking at here is one of the ornithological hotspots of Arabia, where oil from the water from the oil fields is being filtered through reed beds, and those reed beds have become oases for migrating birds. And just an amazing story of nature-based solutions becoming an absolute haven for nature itself. And again, southern Oman now, you're amongst these enormous baobab trees that one would normally associate with Madagascar and Africa. So Oman has this extraordinary range of biodiversity, from 10,000-foot mountains, 3,000-kilometer coastline, mangroves, sandy deserts, and baobab trees like this. And but as we said, most of the life comes out at night, and very sensibly when the temperatures are much cooler. And so when we camp at night, we put a camera trap out, we empty a tin of smelly tuna nearby, and it's amazing who comes to dinner. Those of you who are wildlife experts might recognize these beautiful creatures. These are honey badgers, captured at 8:45 in the evening. A beautiful striped hyena coming out, clearly got a interest in a nice tin of tuna, and then some beautiful Arabian wolves. And all of these animals are in that part of Oman called Dhofar down in the south. And that's where Thomas ended his journey, and we ended our journey in February this year. This is Salalah, the southern city, in 1927 when Thomas rode into town. And, you know, Jewel of Oman, without doubt, is the southern region, and it really is Africa in Arabia, primarily because of those monsoon winds bringing the moisture and that cool air from the ocean. You have weaver birds, and what is normally a brown desert turns green, and over 1 million visitors visit southern Arabia in July and August for the Kharif, which is the local word for monsoon, the Kharif festival. And when that cloud disappears, what is revealed is this beautiful green oasis, and hence the incredible wildlife of hyenas, Arabian leopards, and weaver birds. It really is just beautiful. You would not believe you were in Arabia. 20 kilometers to the north, it's 45 degrees and gravel. But because of these clouds, because these mountains face the coastline, 20 kilometers to the south, it's much different. Camels, happiest camels in the world, can gorge themselves to the point of exploding. And you're right down on the edge of the Yemen border here, 33 kilometers away. And it's the only place in the world where I've seen camels swimming in the sea, queuing up to have a dip for their warm water swim. And this is Dal Kut, the last community in Oman before you reach Yemen. A beautiful place, very wild. Everything grows. If you don't look after your house, you'll have trees growing on your walls. And there are even crashed Russian helicopters on the beach, which tell their own story of the Yemen conflict just across the border. But You know, what you're looking at here is a person who's described as the world's greatest living explorer. And those of you who know your explorers will know that it's Sir Ranulph Fiennes here. And when Ran was asked where in the world he would most like to be by the Guardian newspaper, his first response was southern Oman, because he spent several years here fighting with the SAS back in the 1960s, 1970s. And, you know, he was part of the excavation team that discovered the fabled lost city of Ubar, which you can see on the map here. We thought for a while it was further north in Saudi Arabia, but the current thinking is that a place called Shisar, just about an hour's drive north of Salalah, called Ubar, is actually the real home. And it's a UNESCO protected site now, looked after by the Oman's Ministry of Heritage and Tourism. And overlooking this beautiful coastline in southern Oman, you have these trees that were once the source of a resource that was more precious than, or was more precious than oil and gold today, and that is frankincense. And if you put a little nick in the bark of that tree, the sap will ooze out, and you can come a couple of months later and break off those chunks of sap. And it's that sap that you burn in a little burner that gives you that beautiful fragrance called frankincense, which is the root of one of the world's most exclusive and expensive perfumes, which has its roots and base in Oman, called amouage. And that frankincense is a key ingredient of amouage perfume. And that incredible culture, wherever you go in Oman, the hospitality is 100% genuine. You'll never be asked for money. You'll never be asked for a tip. People would not expect it. They would be offended if you offered it. And it's completely genuine and built into the DNA. So the book of that journey is going to be launched at the World Travel Market in London on November the 6th. I'm very excited because the first copy's going to reach me here in Scotland on Friday this week to have a look at. So it's gone to print. But you know, the spotlight now is on my next journey, which is called Oman 3165. 3165 is the length of the coastline in Oman in kilometers. And Oman3165.com will take you to our website for this journey, which is password protected. It'll be unlocked very soon. But the next project will see me start in the north of Oman this November and paddle a sea kayak all around the 3,165-kilometer coastline of Oman to finish on that beach with those camels and that helicopter in the very southern tip of Oman on the border with Yemen. And we have a fantastic team of Omani team of marine specialists who can tell me what I'm seeing every day from my kayak. We'll be celebrating and posting stuff on social media every day, podcasting every other day, telling the stories of Oman's incredible marine heritage, and really putting the spotlight and keeping an eye out for two species that are really under threat: the Indian Ocean humpback dolphin. And you can see there's a cluster of sightings being made in the north of Oman and along the southern coastline, but very little is known of them. And these beautiful creatures, the Arabian humpback whale. It's the only population of humpback whales on the planet that do not migrate, because the shifting monsoon winds bring the hot and the cold water to them. But there are less than 100 of these incredible creatures left. So I'll be partnering with a company called Adventurous Audio. We'll be releasing podcasts onto Spotify and Apple Play every day. These are the ones from the Jewel of Arabia expedition, where you can find Dina's podcast about food. We're going to be launching this project later on this month at the Royal Geographical Society, because that coincides with World Maritime Day. And on the wall of the society hangs a kayak that is almost 100 years old. It's made of seal skin and whalebone. And alongside that will be my new carbon fiber kayak. So spotlight on the ocean rather than on camels this time. We'll be doing something cutting edge, which has never been done in Oman before. We'll be taking water samples and testing for environmental DNA, which is a real interesting stuff. We're partnering with multiple universities around the world. I'm going here tomorrow to speak to the marine biology students at the Scottish Marine Science Association. We're talking to the specialists at the University of St Andrews, because they can interpret this. What you're looking at here is a hydrophone. I'll be towing a hydrophone behind my kayak, but the people who can interpret the noise that I'm hearing are the people at St Andrews University. We're working with students at Durham University to use virtual reality. I'll have a Insta 360 camera on the back of my kayak, and we'll be updating a journey map that'll be there on the website with 360-degree imagery. We're partnering with BBC Education and all sorts of exciting charities connected with environmental protection. And we will be bringing the world to classrooms, or bringing Oman to classrooms around the world through a Starlink connection and a partnership with Vodafone. And that's the next journey, Oman 3165, using one of these beautiful sea kayaks that I'll be able to paddle for 30 to 40 kilometers every day. The journey is going to take me about 70 days, I think, depending on the weather. And if you really want to find out more about Oman, and I think Jonny might allude to this at the end, but coming up this, well, in fact, a month today exactly, we'll be lecturing at the Royal Geographical Society in London, telling the story of the Jewel of Arabia. And the nice thing is that the tickets are completely free. All you've got to do is to go onto Eventbrite and type in Oman, the Jewel of Arabia, and you should find a link to the tickets and get your tickets. I think we've sold up just about 300 of the 600 now, so it's half full. So get your tickets as quickly as you can. And there you go, Jonny. I hope that has whetted people's appetite. I hope I haven't gone too long. I'll stop sharing there.
Fantastic. Mark, the thing that really you so brilliantly illustrate there and was just bringing it back to me is the diversity of the. Ah, we got you. We got you. Good. There's Mark. That's what he looks like with his broken arm. Um, that's why you couldn't get the camera working, I expect.
Exactly.
You need two hands. No, what you really illustrate there is the diversity of the landscapes. I mean, look behind me in that image, which I took, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And that is not that far from those images you were showing of Salalah, and, pictures that literally looked like England. I mean, it could have been Kent or somewhere, green fields practically. So it's absolutely extraordinary. But the one image that I really loved, because I mean, don't get me wrong, staying in the empty quarter is an experience I shall never forget. Absolutely fabulous. Climb up these dunes, spend the night there. But wild camping on those beaches, you're going to have rather a lot of nights of that, I suspect, over the next, when you get started on that, 70 odd nights. But oh my goodness, and I don't want to steal Mark's thunder, who's going to come on in a minute and tell us about some of that. But that is one of the highlights of one of our tours, is sleeping out in those deserts. Mark, thank you so much. Absolutely riveting, just brilliant. Of course, we all wish you the best of luck with that. And yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that towards the end. But right now, let me bring in Marc, who many of you will know, as I say. Marc is our Director of Product and Operations. Evening, Marc, who is going to tell us about the tours that we run there. So Marc Evans and I will stop sharing and we'll hand over to Marc Leaderman. Marc.
Thank you very much. Good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone. So yeah, I first visited Oman just over 25 years ago, when I had slightly more hair than I do now, and probably I had a slightly inflated view of how adventurous I was. When I look at what other Marc has been doing, I really wasn't on the same level, but I had an amazing time when I was in Oman. And although I've been back a couple of times, I haven't been back as recently as Jonny and Marc. But from what I hear, it hasn't lost any of its charm and just real sense of adventure that I got when I was there in the late 90s. So I am going to take you on a journey through Oman. It won't be with camels. It won't be sea kayaking along the coast. It will be slightly more tame, but with sense of adventure. And I will use a couple of our popular group tours to do that and give you an idea of what you can see if you want to travel to Oman yourself. So I'm going to start off by talking about our Oman Desert Adventure 12-day trip. And this starts right at the top at Muscat, and it weaves its way through the mountains, along the coast, as Jonny was saying, into the empty quarter, and then down into that green area in the south around Salalah. So doing this trip, what do you see? Well, you start in the capital. Muscat itself, the capital, is a really interesting city. It's got lots of very different suburbs, lots of different districts. The old city is known as Muscat. And one of the things that I found fascinating is this, up until 1970, was a medieval walled city where every night someone would come along, and as the sun set, they would lock the doors and not open the doors of the city until the following morning. So you've still got remnants of that real kind of antiquated sense of it. Obviously, modernity has made its way into it, but that's just to give you a sense of how far Oman has come really just since the 1970s. One of the iconic sites that you'll see inside the old city of Muscat is the Alem Palace. Now, this striking building was built in 1972 for the previous Sultan, Sultan Qaboos, and it's quite a striking building. And on the gates there, you've got the emblem of Oman. This is the Khanjar, which is the dagger, which finds its way onto the flag, and it also makes for a really great souvenir, although I would say definitely pack it in your main luggage. Don't try and take that as hand luggage. Another one of the districts that you'll find in Muscat is called Mutra. And Mutra is quite famous for this curved corniche that you can see at the top of the photograph. And here every evening, people will go for a walk, arm in arm. And it's a little bit like almost the Italian passeggiata, where everyone chats and it's a way to catch up on gossip. And the corniche is famous for its souks, where you can buy souvenirs, you can buy spices, you can meet people. And in the morning, Mutra is famous for its amazing fish market. We actually stay in another district called Rui, which is more of a commercial district. And then to the west of all of those, you'll have the airport, the embassy district, and the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque. Now, when I was first there in the late 80s, this was being built. It was only finished just over 20 years ago, and it's an incredible building. It can house, or it can accommodate 6,500 people. It's absolutely beautifully decorated, and inside you'll find this Persian carpet, which is one piece that took 2 years to make, and it's a really astounding building, really just on the outskirts of Muscat. But after here, here's where the adventure starts, because we get into four-wheel drives and you start heading up into those mountains following Wadi Bani Auf. And Marc's spoken about them, Jonny's spoken about them. They really are impressive. They go above 3,000 meters and they will blow you away. This is not what people generally are expecting when they're coming to Oman. Here you'll find villages. Some of them are abandoned, some of them are not, they're inhabited. And you'll find places like this. This is Al Misfa, where some of the houses, as you can see, have been built into the rock itself. Then there's places like Al Hamra, where you've got mud brick buildings, almost akin to what you'd expect in Yemen, which are really atmospheric. And then there's other places like Birkat al-Moz and Tanuf, where you'll find evidence of the Falaj irrigation system that you can see here, which was actually an incredibly efficient way of irrigating land during the high summer. And that was using technology which was taken on board by the Persians. The mountains themselves are spectacular, and what we do here is we go for a really nice walk called the Balcony Walk, which takes about 3 to 4 hours. It's about 6 kilometers, and you're actually following an old donkey track, and it gives you a really good idea of really just the extent of the incredible mountains that you'll find here. Behind those mountains, you find Nizwa. Now, why today Muscat is the capital, Nizwa was the old capital of the country. Here they still have a Friday cattle market, and it's home to one of the country's, I think, most impressive and probably most formidable forts, which was effectively impregnable until the age of airplanes, completely, unable to be assaulted. And as Marc was saying, there are hundreds of forts throughout the country, and they've got a really unique architecture, a little bit of maybe Portuguese influence, a little bit of Persian influence. And why so many forts? Well, tribal conflict and invaders in the form of Portuguese and British at various times, but the legacy of that are these incredible, buildings. So this is Bachla Fort. This is nearby. This is actually the largest fort in the country. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but probably the best preserved is Jabrin, where you'll find spy holes. You'll also find some really great medieval defense mechanisms like gaps where they could pour boiling date juice onto possible invaders. And inside, because these places were often palaces before they became forts, beautiful decoration and painted ceilings. So they're really marvels to see. Leaving Nizwa, we go via the Bedouin town of Sinor before going into the Wahiba, or now the Sharkia sands, and they really are impressive. You do need four-wheel drives here, and if you've never done it before, wild camping in the sands is incredible. This is not like camping at your local campsite, queuing up for the shower block. It's not like being at Glastonbury or Burning Man. It really is an incredible experience. And from the Wahiba Sands, you're not too far from the coast. And as Jonny was saying, this is one of his favourite moments, really being by the sea. And for me, I remember being here and seeing the fishermen come in and buying kingfish for our dinner, and just cooking that on the beaches. And camping really by the waters is a very, very, very special experience. Seeing your sunsets, your sunrises, will live long in your memory. And then, yes, having left the coast, you are heading for edges of the empty quarter, the Rub al Khali, which measures about 1,000 kilometers by about 500 kilometers. And as Jonny was saying, I think that's probably the photograph behind Jonny. It's an incredible sea of sand like you have never seen before. And it really does give you, it's not for agoraphobics, I would say, but it really is quite an incredible feeling to be there, and some of the most incredible night skies, completely unpolluted, that you are likely to see in your entire lives. And as Marc was saying, this is where you do get a chance to follow in the footsteps of a rather fitter Ranulph Fiennes than he kind of maybe looked in his latter years. And this is what he was looking for. This is what he was in search of. Ubar, mentioned in the Quran as being a place almost a little bit like Sodom and Gomorrah, that they'd got fat off of the proceeds of the frankincense trade, and become corrupt and become debaucherous, and as such it was destroyed. And although it's a UNESCO site, it is interesting, but don't come expecting Machu Picchu or Petra. It is an impressive site, but it's more for its historical value and for its location rather than for a wow factor that you might get from other sites. And then, yes, you head down to Dhofar for the monsoon. You'll get to see frankincense trees, understand, as Marc was saying, and really see the entire process the mineral that we know today. And when you're down in the south, you'll also get to this place called Sumhuram, which today is this very tranquil port, but back in the day was one of the world's busiest and richest forts because of the frankincense trade. So this would have been, I don't know, a New York City or a Rotterdam, and you can get remnants of that to understand just how important the frankincense trade, trading with Damascus, trading with Rome, at the Frankincense Museum. So that is our Oman Desert Adventure 12-day tour, taking you right from the north down to the south. Now, for those of you that don't camp, like my wife, or for those of you that have a shorter amount of time or don't want to travel so far, one of the amazing things with Oman is that in actually quite a small area, you can actually get your sea, your mountains, your desert, kind of in small. And this is our other trip, the Northern Oman Wadis Mountains and Coasts, where you're never really more than about a day from Muscat, and yet you'll get to see incredible variety. You'll see Muscat, you'll see the mountains, you'll see Nizwa, you'll see everything, but you'll see it in a little bit differently. So you'll get to see also the Bima sinkhole, which is a limestone feature on the north coast. You'll also see wadis that come down to that north coast. This is Wadi Shabs. And then you'll also get to see Sur. Now, Sur was a famous shipbuilding place right over on the north northeast corner. Today it's a really sleepy town, but it's really interesting to see that that history of it. You will go into the Wahiba Sands, but unlike the other tour, you'll stay somewhere a little bit more comfortable and not have to camp. So whichever trip that you may decide, for those of you that don't know Wild Frontiers, all of our trips have got a maximum of just 12 clients. And whereas when I was out there in the late 90s, I was leading the trip, now we have some incredible local leaders like Nawaf over in Oman who will guide you around. And with regards to accommodation, you'll be in some really nice, very comfortable accommodation on either trip. And obviously, if you're taking the Oman Desert Adventure trip, you will spend a few nights desert camping wild and having great memories of that. Looking at logistics with regards to getting to and from Oman, you've obviously got the national carrier Oman Air, which has got a very good global network, but it's also very, very well serviced by all the other Middle Eastern carriers that you will probably know about. With regards to visas, Oman is visa-free for up to 14 days for about 100 different countries, definitely UK, US, so almost certainly a very, very easy country to go and visit. And it's also worth remembering that we offer full tailor-made services too. So obviously you can do everything that I've shown you in the group tours, but you can do snorkeling at some islands near Muscat, you can go see turtles, you can go up exploring the fjords of the Musandam Peninsula near the Iranian, near the Persian Gulf and Iran, and equally we can arrange things like private dinners on beaches and in the desert if you want. And with regards to accommodation for tailor-made, within reason, sky's the limit. You've got some incredible places like the View up in the mountains, you've got the Chedi in Muscat, you've got Six Senses at Ziggy Bay in the Munsadam Peninsula, and then you've got some smaller boutique places like the Nizwa Heritage in the old capital. And if you're interested in that, then get in touch with our tailor-made expert Kenny, who will very charmingly talk you through all the options that you might want to consider for your trip to Oman. And just really to finish up by saying that I first went there in the late 90s. Jonny and Marc have obviously been back a lot more recently, but I think, as Marc was saying, that essence of hospitality and genuine warmth, I think, is the same as it was then as it is today. So if you do travel, I'm sure you will have an incredible time too.
Marc, thank you so much. I am just going to quickly share my screen again just to go through a couple of final points. Yes, so other trending destinations for Wild Frontiers at the moment: Uzbekistan, India, Albania, Japan. I could name a few others like Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, and a number of others. We also have the Wild Frontiers Foundation, which I like to talk about because that's something that's very important to us at Wild Frontiers. We support lots of projects around the world, and if anybody would like to donate to that, just go to justgiving.com. Our podcast, in fact, I recorded our 23rd podcast yesterday with Marc about Georgia. So that's Kate Humble and myself. We kind of share the duties of this. And it's great fun. We've got, as I say, we've got 23 live at the moment. The last one I did, which went live this morning, is a really fascinating one. So Shattered Lands by Sam Dalrymple. Many of you will know his father, William, who of course is a famous historian. Well, Sam is a chip off the old block, to put it mildly. Shattered Lands, 5 Partitions and the Making of Modern Asia is an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion. If you're interested in the partition of the subcontinent, which does include Oman, of course, and other parts of Arabia, as well as places like Bangladesh and Bhutan and Nepal, as well as the obvious India and Pakistan. This is a fascinating tale. And the podcast is great. I interview Sam, and he's a really good raconteur on this particular subject. We focused it mainly about Kashmir because Hayley, our content marketing manager, had just got back from Kashmir, and we wanted to let our listeners know what Kashmir is like at the moment to travel there. So that's a really interesting podcast that went live yesterday, I think. So do listen to some of those. As Marc mentioned, for those of you in or around London, Marc will be doing an event at the Royal Geographical Society. I think he explained how to do that. I'm sure that's easily found through the Royal Geographical Society's website. So now we're running a little bit late, but we've still got 5 minutes or so to do a Q&A. So Mike, do you want to come on? I'm Marc, and Marc, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah,
Great.
Marc. Yeah,
thank you, Jonny. Thank you, Jonny, Markel, and Marquis, for a really wonderful talk. That was brilliant. We've had a few questions in already, but it's not too late to submit yours using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. But we'll kick off with a question from Jane. I guess this is one for you, Marc L. She's wondering how much driving is involved in the Oman Desert Adventure, and are the guides Omani?
Yes, so the guides are Omani. What you sometimes have is, and it's becoming less occasionally, there is an Indian driver guide as well, because there's quite a lot of Indian workers, but the vast majority of them now are Omani due to Sultan Qaboos's Omanization of the workforce. So when I was there, I always had one Indian who was an amazing cook, but now they're all Omani. With regards to driving times, it varies. But some of the drives will be, probably in the region of 5 to 6 hours, but it is part of the journey. I mean, Jonny, you did this trip more recently, but I would say when I did it, you're never driving continually, you're stopping, you're taking photographs, you're going for walks. Often when they're packing up camp, you go for a walk in the morning. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, this is not driving up the M6 motorway. This is driving through some of the most extraordinary landscapes, as Marc illustrated. So even if you are driving for, as you say, I can't think 6, that sounds too long, but I would say 4 or 5 hours certainly. But you're stopping a lot. You're seeing some amazing things. I mean, one time, showing what Marc showed of the coastline, we drove for about 40 kilometers along the beach. I mean, literally just along the beach for 40 kilometers, stopping with some fishermen, like you said, Marc, to buy fish for dinner, which we barbecued. But you just drive along the beach. I mean, absolutely fantastic. So driving, compared to some tours, I wouldn't say driving is a particular issue on this one.
Right. And just staying with the subject of driving, Cynthia would like to know if that journey can be done as a private journey, and if so, can they drive their own 4x4s?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So
Probably.
That's a big question for Kenny. I know that when you're going into the empty quarter, for safety perspective, you need to have a second vehicle.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's changed, but I know that definitely used to be the way. If you're doing the north, so going into the Wahiba Sands in the north, that's fine. You can do that in one vehicle. But going into the south, into the real empty quarter, I think they insist on at least a second vehicle.
I can tell you definitely can, because the last time I was camping in the empty quarter, a German family arrived in one of these enormous Unimogs, a kind of great big Mercedes 4x4 truck come mobile home. They were charming, actually, and we had quite a fun afternoon with them. But and they were there, and I don't recall them having a second vehicle, to be honest. But they may have done. I can't remember. But I'm sure you can talk to Kenny in our office, and he will sort you out.
Right. This could be a question for Marc L or Marquis, really. When is the best time to visit? That's from Julia.
Go on, Marquis.
Okay. Well, it depends where you want to go, Julia, really. I mean, if you want to see that incredibly green monsoon-kissed area of southern Oman that the geographers refer to as Arabia Felix, then August, September, October are absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You'll see in Arabia that you really didn't expect. If you want to go to the north, where I know the Wild Frontiers smaller tour goes, then really November, December, January, February. It's winter is beautiful. Nights are very, very nice. Obviously, the shoulder period of that a little bit hotter in the middle of the day, but remembering that you can drive to 7,000 feet in the mountains. The balcony walk that Marc referred to is just spectacular. So if you're going to the north, I would say from 1st of December to the Middle of March, really beautiful. If you want to go to the south, really July, but August and September, September in particular, if you want to see the vivid greenery when the mist and the monsoon has started to dissipate, it's great. That's the joy of Oman, that incredible diversity of geographical phenomena that mean you can travel at almost any time of the year and go somewhere.
I can tell you just from my own experience, New Year is a great time to go. Some of those photographs you saw, I was took a tour in December, going into January, and that's a great time. Go and spend New Year on one of those wild beaches. Fantastic fun.
Great. I've got another question. I don't have the name, but this is again for you, Mark E. The mangroves you were talking about, which parts of Oman can they be found?
Well, I know there's someone listening to us right now who's actually in Muscat in Oman, called Tamsin and Jonathan Turner, and they are the experts on the coastline of Oman. But really, there are mangroves all along the northeast coast, in patches. The Arabic word for mangrove is kurum. So there's a part of the capital city, Muscat, called Kurum, which is one of the largest expanses of mangroves. And they're in the heart of the capital city. So where you fly into on your Oman Air flight, within 30 minutes of the airport, you're going to be you could find yourself in the middle of mangroves. But the place we went to on that boat is about a 4-hour drive south of Muscat. Place called Mahout, after the elephant handlers. But Mahout Island is the largest expanse of mangroves in Oman. Just beautiful, very, very quiet, very peaceful. Ospreys and flamingos everywhere, but just you have to go at high water, otherwise you end up doing what we had to do, which is wading for about half a mile across mud flats to get back to where you went out in your boat. But there are lots of mangrove replanting projects going on all along the coast of Oman. But they're in patches in multiple places.
Great, thank you. Got another question for you, Mark E. Well, it's not a question, actually. I assume it's from a friend of yours, Paul McGreevy, who just wanted to mention another dimension of the country, which is the amazing scuba diving, coral reefs and sharks you can see.
Yeah, well, very true. I mean, I paddled my kayak around the coastline of Bahrain and Qatar, and most of Oman's coast previously, and the seas are the waters around Oman are spectacularly alive. Like every ocean in the world, under pressure. This baseline syndrome where we have to be careful that it's not always been this way. It was much more prolific decades ago. But there are some great young Omanis now doing a lot of innovative work in the environmental arena. These humpback whales have hopefully got a future. There are 5 species of turtles that you find nesting along the coastline of Oman, and as Paul rightly says, some areas of incredible coral with some great snorkeling and great diving, and some amazing old Portuguese wrecks. And I know again someone who's listening to this very webinar has found stone cannons and stone anchors under the sea going back to Portuguese origin just off the coast of Muscat. So it really is an adventurous playground.
Great, thank you. Got a bit of a logistical question for you, Mark L, which is about the Oman Desert Adventure. So the dress code for women visiting the mosque in Muscat is part one of the question. Part two is, would a 2-season sleeping bag be sufficient for wild camping? And part three is, would you recommend walking boots for the gorge walk, or would walking shoes be sufficient?
Fine. So part one, women to go into the mosque, they do need full length trousers or skirt, and they do need to be covered up all their arms. So you can either pack that with you if you're visiting directly from the plane, or you can actually rent stuff at the entrance of the mosque. So that's possible. So yeah, a little bit conservative, but beyond that you can go in. With regards to sleeping bag, basically 2-season is fine. If you feel the cold, you can go up a level, but I would say 2-season and above is fine. And then with regards to the balcony walk, for me, I would say it's a bit of a personal choice. That it can be a little bit uneven. There are some loose stones. There are some uneven surfaces. So I always prefer to take footwear that one is broken and uncomfortable with, but I'd say ideally has a little bit of ankle support with it as well is preferable.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's it for the Q&A.
Great, that's fantastic. Well, we're just slightly after 7 o'clock, but that's wonderful. Marc, Evans, thank you so much. That was just absolutely riveting and great to have you on, just sharing your exceptional knowledge of this wonderful country with us and all of our viewers. So thank you so much to Marc. Marc Leaderman, as ever, thank you so much. Michael, thank you. And above all, thank you everyone for watching. And until next time, good night from all of us.
Great. Thank you, Jonny.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Marc.
Bye-bye.
Bye.